Hello and welcome back to NoBS. Today we're talking about another TV show, a beloved cartoon animated satire that's getting censored and having its episodes removed from the internet. Today we're of course talking about our favorite show, South Park. South Park recently became a streaming member at HBO Max. HBO Max is a new streaming service set up to compete with Netflix and Hulu and all those other ones. And HBO actually made a big move and a big play last year when they bought the entire catalog of South Park. They bought the streaming rights and they switched over from Hulu around a year ago. And now HBO Max has finally come out and they've decided to censor the series that they sought after and spent so much money on. I guess that's their right to do so. They have the rights and they can put on what episodes they want. I'm sure that's part of their deal, but it's definitely questionable and it's definitely lame. I definitely hate that they're doing this. And it sucks that you can't have one place to see all of the South Park episodes complete. Like this was supposed to be the go-to place. And now they've decided to remove 5 episodes for pretty lame reasons too. Granted, these episodes had been controversial before. We're going to get to them and why and talk about the story more soon and give you all the details and just talk about how this cancel culture is just spreading. I mean, this happened with It's Always Sunny. 30 Rock had to censor some episodes. There were other things taken down like Gone with the Wind. A lot of stuff has seen this kind of censorous wave come through, and it's all in response to these terrible stories and this race baiting and these protesters and everything just getting crazy over the summer, which in turn is indirectly, or I would say directly related to the whole election. November, we're voting in a new president. So this kind of antics is what's happened last election and all kinds of other times in the cycle. So it's not exactly new, but it is shocking and surprising. And it is a little upsetting when it happens to our favorite show, South Park. So we're going to get to an article and details more about it soon. But first, let's take a quick moment to check out our sponsor. A new bill has hit Washington and it's trying to invade your privacy right now. It's called the Lawful Access to Encrypted Data Act, and if passed, it will be the end to warrant-proof encryption, meaning both you and I won't have privacy from the government, even encrypted data. That's why I do everything I can to ensure my privacy online, which means always keeping my VPN or virtual private network turned on. Using a VPN will hide your location online and stop advertisers from creating a profile about you. And it will also allow you to surf the web anonymously. That's why I recommend a VPN, and I also recommend the company I love and trust, Virtual Shield. So make sure you check out the link below or go to virtualshield.com/NoBS and start protecting yourself online today. Thanks for your time, and now back to the show. Great, now that that's out of the way, let's talk about what episodes of South Park were banned and why. This article from IGN has more details. It says HBO Max will not include these 5 banned South Park episodes. They're called Super Best Friends, Cartoon Wars Part 1 and 2, 200 and 201 will not be available to stream. Now, I already know pretty much why. I think a lot of it is, most of it has to do with the depiction of a religious icon that is not actually allowed to be depicted in a certain religion. I think you guys can guess where that's from. I mean, it's not obviously a Western religion. We're not talking about Christianity, Judaism, or anything like that. We're talking about a Middle Eastern religion, and South Park has agitated them, to say the least. They've definitely decided to use their freedom of speech. They featured this guy as a character a couple of times, and it's usually not even that big a deal. The only big deal is that it's against the rules of that religion to portray him. So anyone that portrays this leader, this deity of their religion, that's called a blasphemy for them. That's called an illegal act within that religion. But South Park stands up for that. They don't care. They're very much about free speech. They're not going to kowtow. They've been doing this for years. This actually happened a few years back. These episodes were from like 10 years ago, I believe. It's been a long time. Super Best Friends, I remember, just off the top of my head, I remember Super Best Friends had a small feature role of this character. He was just like a side character, and people didn't actually notice it much when it first happened. But then by the time they got to Cartoon Wars 1 and 2, they had a whole thing about it because Cartoon Wars was a premise where it was like South Park meets Family Guy and they have this little war, and Simpsons even get involved in there too. And the basic premise is like they're trying to get Family Guy canceled. Like Cartman wants to cancel Family Guy because everyone says, oh, Cartman, you should like Family Guy. Why don't you like Family Guy? And he actually hates the show, and he gets very, very upset when people keep saying that to him. So it turns into this thing where he tries to get it canceled. And it actually is kind of self-referential, kind of meta, because the way he wants to get it canceled is by showing this religious figure that I'm talking about, which also in turn got South Park actually canceled. Now, granted, they were talking about canceling the whole show. This just got a few episodes pulled, but who knows how far this could go this year. God forbid, I don't want anything to happen to our South Park. I'm hoping they come back in the couple months when they usually do around the end of August and have some really good satire for this year, because they have a lot of material to catch up on and a lot of cool stuff could be said. I'm sure they're going to reference this stuff too. So this will be an interesting year for the show. So God forbid they can't come back because of silliness like this. South Park is now on HBO Max in its entirety, almost. The lineup on the new streaming service does not include 5 of the most controversial South Park episodes, as noted by The Hollywood Reporter. All 5 episodes include a depiction of religious figures, including the Prophet Muhammad. The revelation shouldn't be news to fans of the long-running animated comedy. All South Park episodes featuring depictions of him have been unavailable to stream on services like Netflix, iTunes, Hulu, South Park Studios, Comedy Central, and Amazon Prime Video in the years following their broadcast. So these have always kind of been controversial. Like I said, they've been unavailable for a long time. There's 5 different episodes. It looks like it's the same reason for all the episodes. I wasn't familiar specifically with 200 and 201. I can't remember all of these, but season 5, season 10, season 14, like these are old episodes too. We're already in season like 23 or 24 right now. So these are like at least 9 or 10 years ago. Super Best Friends portrayed a superhero team made up of religious figures such as Jesus, Buddha, Moses, Krishna, and Muhammad, the latter being strictly prohibited from being figuratively depicted in Islam. Even so, the episode aired without much controversy in 2005 and was only censored in later years. Right. This is the first one I said where people kind of looked over it. He was kind of a side character among all these other religious characters. That's why they called him. They were like the Super Best Friends were like, that's actually based on an old cartoon, which was the Justice League kind of thing. It was like Batman, Superman, and all these superheroes from DC. And that was an old show. And in the South Park, they made a parody version. And instead of heroes, it was religious figures like Jesus and Buddha, and eventually the one that shall not be named or drawn. Here's IGN's review. They said, while it isn't one of the best episodes, it stands out because of the sheer audacity of incorporating just about all the major religions in one silly joke. Yeah, and I think that's another point too for South Park. It's more about here, like they have great episodes, they have hit or miss ones too. I mean, I think they're all good in different ways, but they're not perfect. You know, like there's some that are better than others, this or that. But in this case, there are also ones where they're just kind of historic and making a message and showing that they have balls and they're not going to cave into PC culture. You know, they're like very much like radical, like very strong and independent. And they've established themselves so well now that they can kind of push the line unlike anyone else. Next, we're getting to Cartoon Wars. It says, this chronicled the uproar over a cartoon, in this case Family Guy, attempt to broadcast an uncensored version of The Prophet. The episodes explored the themes of censorship, free speech, and fear, but were also censored by Comedy Central to remove any on-screen depictions of the Prophet. These episodes were produced following the protest and violence sparked by Danish newspaper cartoon depictions of him, as well as the assassination of Dutch filmmaker Theo van Gogh by a Muslim man, who objected to Van Gogh's short film Submission Part 1. The series creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone revisited the subject of censorship in episodes 200 and 201, the latter being deemed particularly incendiary, which saw Comedy Central beefing up security around their offices. Parker and Stone reportedly received death threats in response to the episodes. So now we're getting to 200 and 201. Comedy Central also censored 201 when at the time prompted Parker and Stone to slam the network. In the 14 years we've been doing South Park, we have never done a show that we couldn't stand behind. We delivered our version of the show to Comedy Central. They made a determination to alter the episode. It wasn't some meta joke on our part. Comedy Central added the bleeps. In fact, Kyle's customary final speech about intimidation and fear, it didn't mention the Prophet at all. It bleeped it out. So this was another mention to the Prophet. It looks like they're all Prophet mentions, and it just goes to show that they're kind of like early on, they're like doing this anti-religious stuff. And then the other thing in this episode that I remember, I was trying to get a read on it. It looks like they also feature a lot of other characters. This was like 200 and 201. It was like a celebration to the them making 200 episodes. You know, like every 100 episodes in a show is pretty monumental. It's like a big milestone. Usually they don't even get to 100. So getting to 200 is a big deal. I remember they just got to 300 recently too, and that's pretty cool. And this episode kind of went back and referenced previous ones. So they also went back and referenced this Tom Cruise episode where they made fun of Scientology, and that was also very controversial and almost got censored. Then there was an episode with Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck and them as lovers, and then they made Ben Affleck have this butt head. It was really, really silly, but hilarious. And these are the kinds of things they've been doing for years. And I think the point is, like, some people might see this as, oh, why aren't they edgy anymore? And the fact is, they actually are. They do a lot of this stuff still. I think the problem is it's just they're so expected to do it now. They're not getting like the backlash anymore, which is actually good. They've progressed the line. They've like pushed the limits so far that they can basically do whatever they want now. Back in this time, we're talking about 10 years ago. We're talking about 15 years ago sometimes or more. And things were different. They were the first ones on the cutting edge, and they were the first ones that kind of stepped out. And this just goes to show, this is a good story to show that South Park still has it. They've been doing this forever. And in fact, their older stuff is still controversial now. So that's why HBO is banning it in the present and censoring it for the littlest thing. I mean, we're talking about little bits in these scenes, like little shots of the prophet that aren't like the biggest deal to most people, but they're basically kind of caving in because they're afraid to scare this religion. This religion is a little intimidating, and you know, it makes sense. Like, they did give these death threats, and these guys in the South Park had to protect themselves, and Comedy Central had to get security. So it is relative, but at the same time, I think, you know, people do want to stand up to them. We shouldn't be allowing this intimidation. This is terrorism. You know, this is like anti-American, it's anti-freedom. So to see it happening and still getting noticed is interesting, but it sucks that HBO is caving in and not letting this message get out there. And it also is a good sign for South Park, and it makes us more excited about the new episodes. That about wraps things up. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. Also hit that like button to get this thing shared. Subscribe if you're new, and check our second channel, NoBS News, for more content. Until next time, have a great day.